Feeding yourself and your family has never been more expensive. We know that anecdotally. Here's some numbers behind that. The average family of 4 will spend more than $16,000 on food this year. With the average after-tax income of Canadian families a little more than $68,000, that means about a quarter of every dollar earned goes towards food. So is it just a reality we need to accept, or can we find ways to curb our reliance on grocery stores and the prices they charge? With us this morning is Charles Levko, professor at Lakehead University, and the Canada Research Chair in Equitable and Sustainable Food Systems. Welcome to your morning.
Hi there. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Okay, before we talk about stepping away from grocery stores, remind us how and why they have become so entrenched in our daily lives.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to think back on the course of human history because grocery stores have not been with us, at least not as we know them, for a very long time. It wasn't until really the early 1900s that grocery stores started to, emerge in the way that, we had clerks behind desks, filling orders and extending credit, especially to farmers who needed them. But, really, it wasn't until even like end of World War II, where we started to see the grocery store kind of as we know it today. 1916, Piggly Wiggly, the story is they created that first floor model where people moved through the grocery store as opposed to engaging with a clerk. But really, it hasn't been that long that we've had them. But, when we think about the convenience and almost the necessity that grocery stores have started to play in our lives, to fit our modern lifestyles, many of us don't have a connection with farmers or fishers or, people to get our own food. So we rely on these grocery stores really for to be able to live the lives we live and be able to work and do all the things we need to do.
We've all heard about how food bank usage is higher than ever because of food prices and wages that just aren't keeping up. In Ontario alone, food bank usage rose 38% last year. More than 800,000 people used a food bank. What are your concerns when you examine the sustainability of the current systems in place that we're using to feed ourselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, and it is very shocking. And I think, any of us who are paying attention to some of these numbers should be very concerned. Especially when we see the grocery store move from that kind of independent model where, stores were meant to, support local communities and give them what they needed. We now have, this system where we have 5 retailers controlling almost 80% of the grocery share market. And I think about it, really as this hourglass figure where we have, the farmers and fishers at the top and people giving us our foods, and then all the consumers, the eaters at the bottom. And that really, if you think of an hourglass, that bottleneck in the middle that is controlled by these grocery stores. And we've seen in many ways a lot of people who are living in poverty and can't afford the food they need. So those numbers, you just showed the food bank numbers, but really, before the pandemic, we had 4.4 million Canadians, including over 1.2 million children that were food insecure. So didn't have enough of that food that they needed to kind of survive. And that number rose significantly, about 6.9 million people in Canada after 2022. And the latest numbers have shown us that it's gone up even more. And, you just showed the 38% in Ontario. And the other thing is to note is that 60% over pre-pandemic levels that it's increasing. So we're just seeing this incredible increase. And of course, we break that down even more and we see that, who is most food insecure. We see Black and Indigenous households that are almost 3 times as food insecure, and upwards of 50% of households on First Nation reserves. So these numbers are really troubling, and they are just seem to be getting worse.
If the reality is that grocery stores have become an essential way of life for us, or they feel like they've become an essential way of life to ever be fully replaced, we like the choice, we like, be able to get grapefruit in the middle of winter. What kind of policies and government intervention needs to happen to better help people to afford groceries? And what are some of our alternatives?
Yeah, and there's lots of alternatives out there, and a lot of them are very, we have to deal with them on our own. So there's things like, you can join community shared agriculture where you can get food directly from your farmer. Some people go out and they grow their own food, or they, join a food co-op, or go to, join a buying club. There's lots of great options out there, but many of those are very individualized. And I think it's important to think about the need for us, yes, to, do what we can, but also to think about these collective solutions. So you mentioned and policy. And there are lots of great policies out there, options out there, but it really demands the political will to do those things. So there's, and again, the research, as a researcher, I see the evidence that these things work. So things like more public infrastructure. Toronto has this amazing public food terminal, which allows fresh food and produce to be available at relatively affordable prices all over the city. There are also policies that could support, better social services, increased living wages, employment insurance, sick benefits for everyone. And then there's things like basic income that has been proven to really change people's ability to access food. Canada is one of the few countries in the G20 that doesn't have a universal school food program, and that is a policy again that has been worked on. So there's a lot of these kinds of efforts underway that we could look to and we could implement again. But if there's that political will to push that forward.
Charles Levko, great conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.